People in our own backyards are hurting. There are insecurities around food, economics, mental health, access to justice, healthcare, and our society continues to become more divisive. But there is hope. Right here in Chicagoland, there are people and organizations who are on the front lines, working to bring about positive and transformative change. Each week, we're going to meet some of these agents of change and examine how they are spurring innovative ideas and finding solutions to push our society forward in a more just direction. I'm Sufyan Sohel, and this is Change Agents. According to the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless, in 2020, an estimated 65,000 people experienced houselessness in Chicago. This includes individuals sheltered, unsheltered, and people temporarily staying with others. Houselessness continues to disproportionately impact Black and Latino Chicagoans, with Black Chicagoans making up more than half of the total population of our unhoused. The roughly 16,000 people living outside are more susceptible to dying from cold exposure during the winter. Historically, the unhoused in Chicago resulted from recessions, technological advancements that displaced low-skilled workers, and gentrification which eliminated much of the low-income housing as more affluent residents moved into the area. The main causes today are affordable housing, unemployment, poverty, low wages, health, domestic violence, and racial inequality. Those housed in our communities often face so many other issues, including lack of mental health services, support, and food. They feel isolated, they're alienated, and they struggle. My guest tonight has been working tirelessly to bring some light to their world and to provide food and nourishment and supplies for general hygiene to the houseless in Chicago. Lovely Brack is a registered nurse with 18 years of experience caring for patients and has improved the lives of numerous patients over the years. She has extensive expertise as a devoted registered nurse who works closely with patients to deliver exceptional patient care. Aside from being an exceptional medical professional, Lovely is the founder of From Our Heart Chicago, and I'm so happy that she's with us here tonight. Lovely, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, Lovely, been reading your website and saw your clip as one of our change in actions in our last season. Tell me about this problem that you're trying to address. I was at the inauguration for Mayor Brandon Johnson, and he said that every night there are more and more houseless in Chicago. And this is an issue that you choose to open your heart to and address. So why is this such a big problem?
So within Chicago itself, we are dealing with people who have mental illness. As you know, there's a lot of mental illness facilities that were closed down. So quite naturally, that pushes them out onto the street. They have nowhere to go. Not only are we dealing with people out there who are mentally ill, but we have people who were possibly paying rent somewhere and that landlord wasn't paying the mortgage, so they lost their home and finding out literally when the sheriff was showing up at their door and putting them out. So with few seconds and last minutes of, knowing that you're now losing the roof over your head, people are being subjected to go out on the streets. So this is now flooding into our community, whereas we're having more and more people that are houseless. Not only are there families, but there are people with mental health issues. And then there's others who just simply don't have the means to provide a roof over their heads.
Something I've noticed also is cost of rent's going up.
Yes.
Cost of housing is going up.
Yes.
I look to see property values around the city, and just affordable housing is almost nowhere to be seen.
That is correct.
Are those factors that also
That is also some factors, and also too, the houseless community feels that if they try to go into some facilities such as shelters that have properties where you can go transition into your own, they have rules that you have to follow. So they may have a certain time that you can come in and eat, certain time that you can come in for the night and you can't leave back out, or you can't smoke in their facility. So then you run into those issues where they feel like, well, I'm not going to go there if someone's going to be micromanaging or taking away my independency and telling me what and when to do. So I'd rather just stay out here where I can be my own person and kind of do things the way I want to do it. So there's a number of things that are actually driving them to stay outside, but a number of things that are actually kind of saying they don't want to go inside as well too. But definitely the rent, it's gone up a lot. I remember when I was 21, you can get a 1-bedroom apartment for $500. Now you can't do that. So it's kind of hard to, get back on your feet and get yourself together and go somewhere and get affordable housing if it's not affordable, if that makes any sense.
Sure. I mean, our minimum wage hasn't gone up that much. Salaries haven't gone up. If anything, cost of living, food's gone up. Everything costs more money to do, but if there's no way, and I mean, it's harder for some of these individuals. They're perpetually kept down, so it's harder for them to find jobs, and
Correct.
Any upward mobility is really difficult for them.
That's true, and also they're faced with the way you look, the way you appear. You don't have an address, so why would I take time out to give you employment when, truth be told, we have a lot of independent companies out here that need contractors. They need help. They need someone to come in and help trash out a property.
Sure.
They need someone to come in and do, things that don't require, quote unquote, a certificate or a degree. So they're there, they're looking to work, and some of them do get up every day, leave their tent and go work. So all of them are not looking for handouts. Some of them are looking for someone to help them. It's just they're needing the right means to do it.
They just want one chance.
Exactly.
And they're not given that, unfortunately.
Yes.
You talked about some of the stigmas they face.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about some more? What are some other, how are they perceived by greater society? And because I think those are some of the factors that keep them held back as well.
Well, just recently, when we did our Cinco de Mayo event, I faced a gentleman who was over the age to come in a particular shelter that we were at that day. And his whole thing with the young lady was, she thinks I'm dumb. She's talking to me like I'm stupid. He was like, here are my grades. And he literally had his transcript on his phone of recent classes he had taken where he gotten A's and B's. So it wasn't, it's like we sometimes forget these are people we're talking to. Let's address them, appropriately. Don't just assume because they don't look a certain way that they're automatically dumb. They automatically have mental illness. That's not always the case. So I tell everyone, always take a step back, imagine yourself as that person, and then have that conversation. Don't just automatically assume because they are very smart. They're very intelligent. And even people with mental illness are intelligent. You just have to talk to them appropriately, meet them at their level and don't try to over talk at them, if that makes any sense.
Oh, sure. Oftentimes I think we collectively dehumanize our houseless, and
Yes.
we think of them as less and treat of them as less, and I think it just all contributes. It's a perpetual cycle that keeps them down, unfortunately.
Yes.
So how do we change how we think about them? You mentioned, remember that they are intelligent, remember they have able. It could just be a string of bad luck. Is it maybe understanding that all that we have could be taken from us like that one day too, or what?
That is also a case because I tell everyone we're one paycheck away from being homeless. And what I mean by that is take a look at the property taxes in Cook County from Will County. Just as easily as I'm paying my mortgage every month, maybe I don't pay my HOA for the whole year. They can come and take my home. Just that simple. I can be that same person out on the streets. So it's like, take a step back. You never know when you have that break. You never know when that one client comes in and has you at your point where you just forget it and you lose it all. It can happen just so easy. So it's almost to the point where I'm like, treat them how you would want your family member treated. Treat them how you want your mother, your grandmother, your sister and brother treated. At the same token, treat them like you would treat your own self. Why judge them just because they're sleeping on the streets? That's not nice. God wouldn't like you to go out and just judge his people. So why are we judging them? It's just, to me, it's almost like it's a form of ignorance, to just go ahead and prejudge someone.
I think we often forget that we need to show more compassion and love and kindness
Definitely.
to those, especially those less fortunate than we may be, and not really fully understanding how they're in the position they're in, and what our duty and responsibility may be to support them.
Yes.
But you found your duty and responsibility, and I want to hear about that.
Yes.
What made you, a nurse, a registered nurse,
Yes.
Want to create this organization?
I graduated from school in 1996, high school. So I went to Jones Commercial, is what it was called back then. And next door from Jones Commercial, from the years I was there, which was 92 to 96, there was a shelter. So every day, in order to get into school, we had this whole format where you had to walk from the gate to the door with your hat on and your skirt on and all of this rigmarole. But you had to come up from the subway and step over the homeless community. So the shelter was there. This was our building. So I had to do that for 4 years. And I've always told myself that once I got big, once I became, this big person, that I would always reach back. And my thing was, you have to reach back to help because Jones helped you. At the end of the day, Jones taught me interview skills. Jones taught me resume writing. Jones taught me etiquette skills. So I've always said that if I can teach that to someone else and I can teach them proper hygiene, they can join back into society. They can go back out there and reacquaint themselves and get themselves situated so they don't have to sleep on the streets. If they choose to continue to sleep on the streets, so be it. But I would rather for them at least to have some type of form of income coming in. So it was something that I always wanted to do. And I just slowly started stepping back into it. And I remember back in 2015, I was at church and pastor wanted to make bags to give to a shelter out by us in Aurora. And I was like, I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to get my family members together, and for Thanksgiving, we're going to adopt a family and we're going to provide them Thanksgiving dinner. Well, it was one of those instances where I met a father who was dealing with 2 daughters. It wasn't a mother-daughter situation. It was, it was a different situation. So it was like, wait a minute. Too many times we see women, we never see the fathers reach out for help. So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I think I've tapped into what I want to do. So it was like the following year after that, I was like, okay, I know I adopted one family that year, but this year I want to kind of do it for 100 plus people. So then that's when I reached out to my friend Candace and was like, hey, I was in church, I got this bright idea last year. This is what I want to do this year, and I need your help. And she was like, okay. I'm like, but we're going to cook for like 100 plus people. And she was like, okay. So it's kind of like, it just grew after that. And then my thing was like, I got to keep doing this. Like the people's responses, their expressions on their faces. It was like, this is something that needs to be done. Granted, I felt like, okay, I'm not doing over the top a lot, but it was something that they definitely enjoyed and appreciated. So yeah.
Thank you. So inspiring. What sort of programs are you doing?
So what we do right now, we do love bags. We give out warm items, and we also do food.
Okay.
So generally now what we've been doing is we'll do like a Cinco de Mayo, we'll do an MLK Day, we'll do toys in Christmas time. Summer times we'll do like barbecues in the park and give out like 4th of July type foods. In the winter times, I've been doing soup and sandwiches. Like I come up with these little ideas in the middle of the night. And it's kind of like one of those things where I'll shoot an email. It's like, okay, this is the idea I've come up with. So it's just more or less just, I try to keep coming up with an idea, and I try to do something every other month to kind of keep them knowing that we are here. We hear you. Granted, I can't supply you with a home, but I can definitely make sure you smell good. I can definitely make sure, your breath is fresh. I can get something in your belly. So it's one of those things, but I try to do something every other month.
How many people are on your team?
So right now I have a board of 3, but then what we do is we always send out a volunteer blast, and then the volunteers just come by droves. So lately we've partnered with the HRC. We've also partnered with Amazon in the past when they had the Amazon Smiles program. So it just depends. Certain projects require 6, some projects require 15 or 20, So it just depends, and it's kind of like all hands on deck because the love bags have to be made. So these aren't something that come pre-assembled. These are something that have to be made and have to be stuffed. So it just depends on which project we're doing, and then kind of just pull them in as we go.
That's so awesome. Sign me up, please.
Definitely.
And my last question for you this evening is, what keeps you going? What keeps you motivated to do this day after day, year after year?
Honestly, it's just each time I go out, everyone pulls at my heartstrings. And each time is something different. So this last time when we did Cinco de Mayo, there was a gentleman who plays football and there was a kid who plays basketball at the shelter. And they just pulled at my heartstrings to the point where my volunteers was like, can I come in and do his hair? And I'm like, we have to speak to the people at the shelter. But yeah, so it was like kind of one of those things. It's that pulls me in. And not only that, this time we sat down and had dinner with them. So just hearing the stories, hearing thank you, hearing I appreciate, hearing I don't know where I would have gotten my meal from today is just some of the things that keeps me going. And at the end of the day, it's God's work. If I have, they'll have. So.
Thank you so much, Lovely, for doing God's
problem.
work and for sharing your story and just amazing, incredible work you're doing in service to our communities.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with our next guest.
Hi, I'm Ryan G. I'm the host of Tweenish. This week on Tweenish, we'll be talking about blended families. I get 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays, and 2 Valentine's Days. How about you, Cameron?
So I agree about the 2 Christmases.
Check out my new show, Tweenish, on KNTV 19.
Welcome back. My next guest tonight is Candace Williams, co-founder of From Our Heart Chicago. Candace, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So you heard our last segment with Lovely, and she mentioned that you connected when she had an idea to make 100+ turkey dinners for our houseless.
Correct.
Can you tell me about that?
I think a couple years prior to our first Just Going Out event, which was in 2016, Lovely will always reach out because she would find a family to adopt, like for holidays. So this particular year, when she came to me, it was like, okay, we can feed a couple people, and it actually just grew organically on its own. And we ended up making 200 dinners. People were donating warm items, food, all type of things. So we literally were able to cook 200 plates, and we went from Chicago South Side, we went downtown, Lower Wacker before they cleared it out, up north, and a couple different shelters too, like near Fullerton. And we were able to just pass out the food, warm items, and we had a bunch of people like join in. So it was like a line of cars going through the city, passing out Thanksgiving dinners.
That's so great. You said it grew. Tell me about that. Like, was it people heard about it and they're like, oh, we want to join in on this? Or?
Exactly. So what we did was personal friends that we knew, we would tell them what we were doing. We started posting it on Instagram, social media. And then we just had people wanted to either like volunteer or they knew people with restaurants and they wanted to just donate in some type of way. We had people, donate, so we were able to get things from Restaurant Depot, different places like that.
To be able to do more.
Yeah. Yeah, and 200 plates.
That's so great. Now, have you been continuing doing that on Thanksgiving each year? Or?
Yeah, so since the pandemic, we hadn't done the big Thanksgiving, but we do food occasionally through the year, 4th of July, Cinco de Mayo. The warm items are always in the toiletry bags, the love bags, they're always throughout the year. And then Christmas, we partner with the organization called the Art of Christmas, and they have a big benefit, like event, black tie event. Everybody brings toys for the kids, so we're able to connect with multiple shelters with women and kids throughout the city and donate the toys for Christmas.
Oh, that's great. And how is it received from the Unhoused?
99% of the time is welcome, is needed. It's a need. It's always that they need something more, but the fact that we're doing something and it helps them in a specific way, they're appreciative. Some, especially if they have mental challenges, they kind of standoffish or not as receptive, but those when other resources will come in and help them, and then hopefully one day they wouldn't mind a handout or a hand up,
Sure.
So.
Right before we started this segment, you were about to tell me a story of one of the people you helped.
Yes, Miss Diane.
Yeah, please.
She always sticks out with me. Going towards the north side under the expressways, like Montrose and stuff like that, Lawrence, it used to be packed with the tents. And from us going up there so much, we got familiar with Miss Diane. Miss Diane knew everybody, where they were, if they was coming back, if they left, if they got housing. She would kind of meet us every time we came, or if they moved. At one point, they used to have church under the bridge in the park. It would be a big tent with music and everything. I think that this would be on Sundays, of course. And she just knew everybody. She would just, it was natural. You know, when you meet strangers, you don't instantly hug them. She was like one of the first people, and it just felt so natural. And she just always welcomed us. She knew everybody. She knew if somebody needed this, that, and the other, or anything extra. Yeah, Miss Diane. And I haven't seen her in a long time because they cleared out a lot of the tents up there. So I don't know if she like went to a shelter.
Why is she so fresh in your mind?
I think because she was silly like me.
Okay.
And so we kind of would just talk and catch up. And she was just so genuine. Like, she was so genuine, just a genuine soul. And she was just always smiling.
Yeah.
You know, and it kind of teach you, if you have certain things, it kind of just almost reminds you to always do a self-check. You know, when we get so quick to get down or complain and murmur, and this lady was living on the street and her smile was as big as mine, and I would go home and be able to get in my refrigerator, get in my tub, you know, things like that. So she was just a real person. She was so cool. She was.
It's so wonderful to hear, and thank you. It's
welcome.
just making me think of, I was mentioning it to Lovely, of how often we dehumanize or minimize people less than us, or those facing these sorts of issues, right?
Yeah.
And you're really portraying her as a person, which is not often done. Mm-hmm. And that's so refreshing to hear. Could you share some other misconceptions people may have about our unhoused community?
A lot of the misconceptions are because probably how a lot of the bad situations and unfortunate instances that happen, it's always the negative that's presented. So some people, if they don't interact or familiar with the homeless, they have it that any interact, they're going to steal or try to take, because that's what's put out there. That does happen. But it's a lot of people that just have hard times. You know, they're falling on hard times, or for whatever reason, they can't do how they would want to for themselves, you know?
Yeah.
So I think we always just go with the open mind. I mean, we all have instincts. We're adult, you know, so we've been in instances where we have a person that will literally act out. You know, we kind of just bag away, give them their space, and still try to help everybody else that actually wants it.
Sure.
You know, and just not be too pushy, like, you know, and kind of, you just show respect. If they don't want to be bothered, and, no, it's okay. Thank you. Have a good day. Let me know. We're not going nowhere. You know, and they may break down a couple times after they see you. And then you don't know what traumas they dealing with throughout their life, and you don't want them to, act it out. So
Yeah.
just be respectful. That's
100%.
all.
And what keeps you doing this?
One is not so much as self-satisfaction. I'm 41, and I've been on my own since 16. And I've never been homeless, but I've been in situations, but I could have been. But I had people that were either like related, or mostly that weren't related to me, that didn't let it go that far, you know? So it's always things happening. You don't understand when those things are happening. But as I'm getting older, some of those hard times, it's almost like, okay, I get it. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like a full circle thing where you just always, no matter what's going on, you just learn to be grateful. Because as good as you have it today, it can be turned upside down tomorrow. So
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Candace, thank you so much for coming on and joining us on Change
You're
Agents
welcome.
tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
My absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We'll be right back with this week's Change in Action.
Hi, I'm Ryan G. I'm the host of Tweenish. This week on Tweenish, we'll be talking about blended families. I get 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays, and 2 Valentine's Days. How about you, Cameron?
So I agree about the 2 Christmases.
Check out my new show, Tweenish, on CanTV 19.
Our change in action this week is the Ma'afa Redemption Project, an organization making waves and bringing positive change to Chicago.
The Ma'afa Redemption Project was a violence prevention organization based out of West Garfield Park. We serve about 40 guys a year. They with us for 12 months. We're an extension of New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church, and our main thing is ministry. We believe that change comes from the inside out. We'll have either financial literacy, drug education, mental health, Contextos, which is a writing circle, or author circle, which is phenomenal. They come in and they sit with the guys and they help them go over their thoughts through writing. We do what we call morning meditation, where every morning, one of the life coaches, every life coach has a day where we go over the Word of God. It's a theme of the week. A typical week could be, say, the theme is love. And so the life coach will go over and study things about love from the scripture, and we'll have a meditation about it, which lasts about an hour long. We have a phenomenal brother by the name of Dr. Dwight McKee. He comes in and he does an identity course. He uses nursery rhymes to explain life. Like he talks about Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall and how Humpty Dumpty is an egg, and why would he put himself in such a vulnerable position being an egg, knowing he has no margin for error. And he tries to tie that into us as black males in growing up in America, and especially in Chicago, in the city, understanding that we can't afford to put ourselves in these vulnerable positions because we have no margin for error. And once you crack, nobody's gonna be there to put you back together again. We just graduated our 6th cohort. We're about to start our 7th. We're recruiting. So any guys from the ages of 18 to 30 that's in the West Garfield area that looking for change, a spiritual change, a mental change, a brotherhood, just some type of help, feel free to come through 4245 West Washington. We on Washington and Kildare, right on the corner. I'm there every day from 9 to at least 12, so you'll be able to catch me. I come from the streets, I'm from the environment, and so the church helped me. Now it's just my way of extending that same grace and introducing them to God just like I was introduced, and it helped change my life.
Thank you to the Ma'afa Redemption Project for the work you do for Chicago. Thank you to Lovely and Candace for helping make our world and our city a better place, and to share your love with our most vulnerable. There are so many taboos around our houseless. We shun them, walk away from them, and often treat them with little dignity or respect. Houselessness is a problem that we can no longer turn a blind eye to. A community-wide coordinated approach is needed, pulling in resources and expertise from the government, community organizations, and the private sector to deliver services, housing, and programs. Jobs and health support are vital to achieve stability. We must expand longer-term rental assistance and continue to explore and broaden programs like rapid rehousing to quickly connect the unhoused to housing. Most importantly, we must be compassionate and thoughtful and open our hearts, like our friends at From Our Heart Chicago, to support our unhoused. Vincent van Gogh wrote, "To save a life is a real and beautiful thing. To make a home for the homeless, yes, it is a thing that must be good. Whatever the world may say, it cannot be wrong." We can all be change agents. Let us all be change agents. Thank you for joining us, my friends. I will see you next week.